Good day. Today, we're going to discuss global divide.
Before we start, I would like to inform the viewers that our group is allowing our instructor, Mr. Roldan Arguines, to use this as educational purposes only.
For today's objectives, discuss the ever-changing concept of Global South, identify countries which are commonly associated with the Global South and the Global North, survey and political economics conditions in a time contemporary Latin America.
How did the global divide develop? The document discusses the global divides between the global north and the global south. It defines the global north as developed countries in Europe and North America that make up one-fourth of the population but have four-fifths of the world's income. The global south refers to developing countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America that make up three-fourths of the population, but only one-fifth of the world's income and tend to have higher poverty, conflict, and less political stability. It notes measures have been taken through globalization and UN programs to try to narrow the socioeconomic gaps between the two regions. Countries of the global north tend to be wealthier and capable of exporting technologically advanced manufactured products. Among other characteristics, in contrast, the global south tend to be poorer and heavily dependent on their largely agrarian-based economic primary sectors.
Why the global divides the North and the South? Simple. It's because of the idea of categorizing other countries by their economic and development status began during the Cold War with the classification on the East and the West. The Soviet Union and China represented the East, and the United States and their allies represented the West. The term Third World War and ultimately gave birth to non-aligned movement. These countries were generally economically developed and than their first and second world counterparts. As some second world countries joined the first world and the others joined the third world, a new and a simpler classification was needed. The first world became the North, and the third world became the South.
The North-South divide is broadly considered a socio-economic and political divide. The global North refers to the first world countries or developed countries. The global South refers to the third world countries or the developing countries. So actually, most of the developed countries are located in the northern hemisphere, like Europe, the United States, and North America, whereas the South are mostly located in the southern hemisphere, like the African countries and Southeast Asian countries, like the Philippines. The global north are also the dominant in politics, economy, influence, and technology. They are so ahead of the South. The South have also many problems like poverty, tyranny, and world hunger, and so on. This means that the global north is better or superior than the global south.
I will discuss the difference between third world and global south. And first, the term third world originated during the Cold War to describe countries that were not aligned with NATO or the communist bloc. The global south, on the other hand, refers countries located in the southern hemisphere, often facing similar economic and social challenges. The concept of the third world has been criticized for its outdated and Eurocentric coronation, while the Global South is a more contemporary and exclusive term. The Global South encompasses a broader range of countries beyond just economic classification, considering historical factors like colonialism and shared cultural experience. Overall, while the Third World label has fallen out of favor, the Global South remains a relevant framework for discussing global inequalities and cooperation. Thank you.
I will discuss the differences of Third World and Global South. Third World, this term originated during the Cold War era and was used to describe countries that were neither aligned with NATO, the First World, nor with the Communist bloc, the Second World. Over time, it became associated with developing countries, often implying a lack of economic development or industrialization. However, it is considered outdated and can carry pejorative connotation. Global South. This term is more contemporary and is used to describe countries that generally located in the southern hemisphere and are less economically developed. It emphasizes a socio-economic and political dimension rather than Cold War alignment. Global South is often preferred because it avoids the negative implication of Third World and focuses on issue inequality and development.
Define the term Global South. The term Global South refers to the countries that are typically located in Africa, Latin America, Asia, and Oceania. These are generally less economically developed compared to the wealthier nations of the global north, the North America, Europe, and a part of Asia. The Global South includes a wide range of the nations with varying levels of development, but they often share common challenges such as poverty, inequality, political instability, and historical exploitations through colonizations. The concept also encompasses a geopolitical dimensions representing countries that were often managed during the Cold War era and continue to face systemic disadvantage in a global economic and political system. The term is increasingly used in discussions about global inequality, development, and international relationships.
Analyze how a new conception of global relations emerged from the experience of Latin American countries. A new conception of global relations emerged from the experience of Latin America countries through their struggles against colonialism, their economic dependency on industrialized nations, and their drive for political and cultural autonomy. The colonial legacy left Latin America with deep-seated inequalities and economic structures designed to serve colonial powers, leading to a continued dependence on Western markets and capital. In response, Latin American countries began advocating for economic independence, solidarity among developing nations, and alternative models of development that prioritize social justice and national sovereignty. Politically, the region's experience with U.S. interventionism in the Cold War fostered a push for non-alignment and more multipolar world order. Cultural movements like this, like indigenismo, the dominance of Western cultural norms, emphasizing the region's unique historical and cultural perspectives. These experiences collectively reshape Latin America's role in the global arena, advocating for a more equitable and diverse world order.
analyze how a new conception of global relation emerged from the experiences of Latin American countries. The new conception of global relation emerging from Latin America reflects a complex interplay of historical experience, economic transformation, political movements, and cultural identity. This evolution is characterized by a desire for greater autonomy, regional cooperation, and a more equitable global order, challenging traditional power structures and advocating for a multipolar world. As Latin America countries navigate their place in the global landscape and their experiences and perspective continue to influence international relations in significant ways.
The terms Global South and Third World might seem similar, but they actually come from different times and ideas. Third World was term used during the Cold War to describe countries that didn't side with either the US, the capitalist or the First World, or the Soviet Union, the communist, the Second World. These were mostly poorer countries in places like Africa, Latin America, and Asia that were not very developed and stayed neutral in the Cold War. Global South, on the other hand, is a newer term. It refers to countries mostly in the Southern Hemisphere that face common issues like poverty, inequality, and lack of development. The focus here is less about Cold War alliances and more about the economic and social challenges these countries face today. While both terms describe similar regions, Global South highlights the ongoing economic gap and shared struggles of these nations in the current world, unlike Third World, which is tied to the Cold War period.